Guys, Cody Garbrandt. Cody Garbrandt came out in an interview that left me confused. Okay, look, here's what the interview said. I liked 125 pounds. A fight is looming between me and Sean O'Malley. That's tough. I read that thing, and then I read it a third time. Go, wait, what am I missing? You like 125, Sean's 135 pounder. These don't go together. They don't have to. I don't have to understand everything. But I still focused on this. Now, my problem with Cody Garbrandt, I believe Cody is the best 135 pounder the world's ever seen. You want to give me a hard time about that? Go ahead. I believe the Cody Garbrandt that beat Dominic Cruz can beat any man that can tip the scale at 135 pounds, ever. That's what I believe. And some guys' reign isn't long. Some guys don't defend and redefend and keep that thing for 5 and 6 and 7 times. And those guys that do, wow, I think there's a real adoration for it. It doesn't take away from the guy that did it one time, and it doesn't take away from his abilities. And I really believe the Cody Garbrandt that fought Dominic Cruz that night and captured the world championship can beat anybody else we have ever seen. That specific Cody, that's believed by other people in different topics. You guys will remember Mike Tyson versus Michael Spinks. And if you don't, let me take you down memory lane. I was in 6th grade. So if we've got an age difference, allow me to tell you the story, but it was the biggest fight of all time. Not only the biggest boxing fight of all time, or rather heavyweight fight of all time, it was the biggest boxing event to ever take place. It was the highest purses. Mike Tyson was given $30 million guaranteed. And Spinks was right there. Spinks was 26, 29, whatever it was. I remember Pepsi specifically was very involved in it. You guys will think of Budweiser as the drink of choice for boxing. I remember Diet Pepsi was very involved in this fight. It was just massive. There wasn't a tremendous story behind it. It was one of the rare fights in history that's ever been a big fight, and they did it just on resumes. The resume and undefeated record of Spinks, who I believe was also an Olympic champion. I get that confused because his brother for sure won the Olympics. I don't know if they both won the Olympics. It was just beautiful. Everything about it was beautiful. Spinks was moving up. Tyson was there, undefeated heavyweight champion. Like, everything worked, and they did it just on resumes. It was based on good, pure, straight curiosity by the consumer of competition, not generally what drives the fight industry. Turned out to be a 93-second fight. Oh, and by the way, within those 93 seconds, Spinks was down 3 times. It was the 3rd time that he went down that the referee called the whole thing off. So it was anything but competitive. And I only am reminding you this because the people that watched the fight, which was everybody that ever cared about boxing, and the people that were very close with Mike, meaning his own trainers and coaches, said that that was the most ferocious and vicious, the best heavyweight boxer the world had ever seen. That specific guy. So we're not tearing into all of Mike's career. We're not going back to the Olympic trials, and we're not going to the world trials in 1985, and we're not talking about what he did after and what a great career he had. We're just focused on that one night and those 93 specific seconds where experts within the boxing game, including Teddy Atlas, nobody's opinion is accepted more by boxing aficionados than Teddy Atlas said, look, that was just the greatest boxer the world had ever seen. That man was simply unbeatable versus any other boxing talent we've ever seen. Now, I only bring that to you because I'm taking that same concept that is widely accepted and has been accepted for 32 years, and I'm applying it to Garbrandt the night that he beat Dominic Cruz. I don't think anybody could beat that guy. I really mean that. So the rules are different for Cody Garbrandt as I see them. When you become a world champion, the rules are now changed. By example, Cody Garbrandt lost a couple of his last matches. Cody Garbrandt lost his very last match. Cody Garbrandt did that down a weight class from the one that he's discussing, on the same night that Sean O'Malley won yet again. There is no world where this fight makes any sense. There's no world where you could even get off the ground with this idea. There is no world where you'll go Cody and you slap him a couple times, you splash some cold water on his face, you say, wake up, man. You're detached from reality, and most guys would be. I just don't think we can apply that to Garbrandt. I think he gets exceptions. I really do. As a world champion, I think he gets exceptions. And you want to know who I think agrees with me? Sean O'Malley. Now, Sean might give a good look at that and go, Cody, I can't do it right now. I'm not really crazy about you, and you had something I wanted to take, but I feel like that's been dimmed a little bit. Go get a win. I mean, I think there's a conversation to be had here. I do not subscribe at all that Cody's next fight is going to be against Sean O'Malley. But I also don't subscribe to the idea that Cody is detached from reality. I think that Cody's reality, because of the World Championship, gets to be slightly different. I think that Cody is in a tough spot. Cody's doing everything now that he did when he was the best in the world. He has not changed. We can't fault him for that. We can critique him and come in and say, Cody, things need to change. Your ability to do X, Y, and Z, that's between him and his coaches, versus the skills that you have against the next opponent need to change. Right? There's a conversation here, but that's between him and his team. As far as Cody wanted to go out there and go and have big matches, Cody's a star. Cody Garbrandt has that X factor. If I see anything that Cody is doing, and that includes on social media, I don't give a damn if he's in the workout room catching a kick from Rob Van Dam. I'm going to watch it, and then I'm going to rewatch it, and I'm likely to share it and maybe even come and make a video with you guys. Like, Cody Garbrandt is just interesting. And I do not think he deserves to be given a hard time because he wants to go, and he wants to go again, and he wants hard fights. He's doing the same thing that he's always done. He hasn't changed in the least. And Cody doesn't have a whole bunch of options, guys. You want to give him a hard time? He doesn't have a lot of options. Fight or not fight. What do you want to do? So he's made it clear that he's going to fight. Great, accept it. And for some guys, they'd be given their walking papers and it wouldn't even be a conversation. That's where I bring to you to make sure you understand there are laurels here. 100%. This is a world champion who is desperately trying. I mean, that's what changing weight classes, doing whatever it takes, taking on all comers. He is desperately trying to recapture something. Man, let's get behind that. Let's not give Cody a hard time. That's a cool move. And sure, we can come in. Sure, we can. Numbers don't lie. We can pull up his record in front of him. We can kind of show him what round did this happen. We can kind of show him specifically what shots he's having problems with. There's ways that you can be very analytical and look at it a little bit more scientifically within his career and hope that you can get through. Cody is stubborn, guys. He's stubborn as hell. Cody likes me. Cody respects me in all fairness. I would never call Cody Garbrandt and shared my opinion with him because he doesn't want it. He's stubborn. Cody could have won his last fight. I think Cody's the better fighter. I'm not trying to take away from his opponent at all. That's my opinion. Then I saw them fight. I still have that opinion. I believe Cody is better, but he's so goddamn stubborn. He cannot get in a shootout. He will always get into a shootout. Guaranteed in his next fight. Might go his way and it might not. He should avoid it. He won't. He won't. So I only bring that to you because there's different conversations being had here. They are not all coupled as one. They're not. If Cody is delusional for thinking he's going to go get a big, huge mega match with Sean O'Malley coming off a loss when Sean's coming off a win, perhaps Cody just doesn't follow policies in the history of the sport, which says in large part, if you lost your last fight, you take on a guy that lost his last fight. If you won your last fight, you take on a guy that won his last fight. Not to mention the weight class issue. Cody went to 125, looked pretty good, and said that he liked it, which would lead me to believe he's going to stay at 125. But then he's calling out Sean O'Malley. I mean, listen. I don't think Cody has to be perfectly clear. He is likely frustrated. He's a human being. He has the right to be frustrated. He has the right to work through a few things. He has the right to want to have big fights. He wants to fight Sean, and Sean wants to fight him. Looks like he got the problem solved, right? No, not quite so fast. Got to figure out a weight class. We got to figure out what's in it for Sean. Guys are partners. There's got to be something. Let's see where it all goes. All I really want to encourage you guys to do is think about being nice for once. We're never nice in this sport, are we? Think about being nice for once. Think about supporting Cody. Seeing what Cody wants to do. You can talk to him and be reasonable as well. If you're one of the people that has his ear, you can be reasonable and say, you know what, we're going to take a little bit of a break. Take a little bit of a break just because. Just in case. We're going to figure out this weight class. If it's 125, here's what we're going to do to make that a little bit easier. If it's 135, here's what we're going to do to fulfill it. Take a little bit of a break. We're going to work on strategies. We're going to talk about this shootout business that I'm alluding to. We're going to talk about avoiding some of these situations that mathematically just simply haven't been wonderful. And I'll tell you, I just dealt with that, guys. If I was to personalize this, I was having a very good career. One point in my life, I was having a very good career. But I was losing matches. Allegedly. Right? Nuances within the unified rules. But they were raising the other guy's hand. Went to something called SureDog.com. And SureDog has something called Fight Finder. Typed in my own name, brought it up, and I'm staring at the page. And I'd had like 14 fights at that time. I'm staring at the page. I had never lost a round. I had never lost a minute of fighting. And this isn't Chael doing shtick. I was completely dominant. I never had a hard time. I go into fights, I wouldn't have a scratch on me. But I wasn't winning all these matches. Why? So I'm staring at it at SureDog.com, and it was submissions, and it was the second round. Lost 3 contests, all the same way. And I was dominating. I was not just winning the rounds that were, I was dominating the matches, never taking a shot, never in any trouble, something about the second round. So I worked with a doctor. I went and found one. I went online. I find this guy, Dr. Versteeg. I go and sit with him, and I tell him the story I just told you. Look, doc, I'm looking at this by the numbers. I'm losing these matches the same way. It never happens to me in practice. Practice for 2 hours a day, every day, never been submitted in practice. I'm finding a way. I am finding a way into these holds. I'm looking for a way out of the match. It's not a physical problem I'm dealing with here. I've got some kind of a mental problem, and I can find it right at the 7-minute mark. 7 to 7.5 minutes into the contest. All of them, looking at the numbers. And it really helped me. I'll save you the rest of the story on how we worked that out, but I went under some hypnosis. I did some stuff. I bought it, and I believed it, and that's when I went on my run. Went on my run and made it to title matches, and I'm only offering for you that when you are in a situation where it's one thing and you can identify it, it can be very helpful. Cody Garbrandt has one thing, which is a shootout. It's a fisticuffs, put your chin down, start firing, he's firing, so he can get to the target fastest. He has one position he needs to avoid. If somebody can sit with him, somebody can explain this and get him to agree, major changes can come, and I'm telling you, and I will stand by it. Cody Garbrandt, on his best night, is the greatest 135-pounder this sport has ever seen.